The rain began as a thin veil, a mist that blurred the city's edges, turning headlights into pale coins of light. By the time Evelyn reached the public library, it had gathered weight, drumming softly on the glass. Like impatient fingers, she stood beneath the doorway, letting the storm wash the day from her shoulders, then pushed through the revolving door. Inside was warmth and silence, the air thick with dust and leather, and the faintest sweetness of polished brass. "Coats on the rack," Liam said, shaking his umbrella with quiet precision. "We won't be long." "We never are," Clara murmured, though everyone knew that wasn't true. The library pulled them in, the way tides obey the moon. Clara slipped her mittened hand into Evelyn and asked, "Do you think Mrs. Corbin will let us see the new room?" "I think she'll say it's close for repairs," Liam replied, a smile flickering at his mouth. Again, the atrium opened like a held breath. Above them, the dome gathered weak light and bent it into a faded rainbow. The tiled floor shimmered faintly, as if it remembered summer. But tonight, the library felt different. Not louder, but tuned to a hidden note, as though the building itself was listening. "Go on," Liam said softly. "Find your shelves." They knew the map by heart. The children's corner with its worn giraffe, the history stacks with footnotes like treasure, the atlas aisle, where continents slept under glass. Evelyn's places were in between, the forgotten nooks, the crooked lamps, the alcove of myths and stories of doors. She drifted there now, trailing the steady beat of a clock deep inside. Dragons stared down from the shelves, their eyes glass green, while gods wore masks of old paint and dust. Her fingers brushed along the spines, reading titles like Spells, The Winter Bride Songs of the Moon Road, The Sea Queen's Riddle. She could have taken any of them, but a tug pulled her farther, to the end of the shelf, where the wall should have been. There was, impossibly, another inch of shadow. Her fingers touched grit, then cold metal. A book had slipped back, hiding in darkness, as though the shelf had forgotten to breathe. It was bound in gray linen charcoal dark, unmarked except for a silver disc on the cover. The disc bore a crescent moon half-lit, and when Evelyn tilted it, the light seemed to shift, alive and waiting. "Evelyn?" Clara's voice floated near. "You found something?" "I think so." Evelyn braced her knee against the shelf, pulled once, then harder. The book came free with a sigh, and something clattered to the floor. A key, slender as a spoon, shining like captured starlight. Along its shaft were tiny crescents, waxing and waning in sequence. The head of the key was a ring of little stars, each sharp enough to prick the skin. Evelyn bent and picked it up. It was cool at first, then warmed in her palm, as though it recognized her touch. The book's linen cover was rough with dust. Her fingers left clean streaks across the gray. The silver disc caught a slice of light, and when she brushed it with her thumb, letters rose like breath on glass, the atlas of small departures. Her heart stumbled. The words glowed, then sank back into the surface, as if they had only waited for her. "It can't be real," Liam whispered. His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed him. "Maybe it only wanted to show you," Clara said. "Maybe it likes your name." "Everything likes Evelyn's name," Liam muttered with a quick smile. Then his mouth firmed. "Put the key away. We should ask Mrs. Corbin." Mrs. Corbin had taught them how to handle books, as though each page carried breath. She mended jackets with patience, told them stories of the library itself. She would know. She always knew. They found her in the main hall, her bun fixed like a crown, her cardigan the color of faded parchment. "Ah, my favorite trio," she greeted them. "I wondered when 3111. "We had a question," Liam began, both eager and cautious, "about the West Wing. You said it was closed." "Yes," Mrs. Corbin said. "Loose plaster in the old reading room. Floorboards, too brittle to trust. Why?" "I found a book," Evelyn said. She lifted the atlas carefully, feeling as though she held something alive. Mrs. Corbin took it with the touch of a jeweler. She opened the first page. Blank. Another page blank. Then faint lines emerged, a grid trembling into place. Islands bloomed in a white sea, their names written in a delicate, certain hand. "When I wanted to say yes. The path I didn't take. The door I didn't open." Mrs. Corbin's lips pressed thin. What an odd joke, she murmured, but her fingers never touched the ink. We won't take it anywhere, Liam said quickly. We were just curious. Curiosity is a good fire, Mrs. Corbin said, her humor returning in a small ember. Bring it back to me before you leave, and keep to the open stacks. She turned away to help another patron. The moment closed like a door. At their table by the rain-streaked window, Clara arranged her pencils like soldiers. Liam squared his notes, each edge perfectly aligned. Evelyn opened the atlas again. The maps unfolded restlessly circles, labyrinths, constellations. Details shifted when she looked away, as if the pages disliked being watched too long. At the center, a thick plate revealed a simple drawing, a door with a knob and a keyhole. Beside it, in tiny letters, the smallest departure. Her pulse quickened. She touched the image. The key in her pocket pulsed, warm and insistent. She drew it out. It caught the gray light, stitched it into silver threads. When she set it against the paper door, the metal slid into the drawn keyhole, as though the page itself had been carved for it. The key turned. A click shivered through the air. Not sound but sensation, a note in their bones. Stop, Liam hissed. But Clara's eyes were wide, fixed on the page as if it were breathing. Evelyn pulled the key back. The paper door was no longer the same. A small notch now marred the keyhole, as if it remembered being opened. Maybe it's a test, Evelyn whispered. Maybe Thalibralostantensis cysts. Who would test us? Liam muttered. The Dewey Decimal System. The library, Clara said simply. Her voice was steady. Buildings have hearts. The radiator sighed. The rain blurred the world outside. Evelyn closed the book carefully, slid the key back into her pocket. 10 minutes, she said. We look, then stop. If it's wrong, we'll know. It already is, Liam said. But his eyes flicked toward the west corridor. They left their table in neat order. The atlas cradled in Evelyn's arms. The corridor was dimmer. Light thinned into the color of wet stone. Portraits of long-dead benefactors, watched with soft disapproval. A velvet rope blocked the way. The sign politely declaring, temporarily closed. It was not locked. It rarely was. Liam lifted it with a sigh. Evelyn ducked under. Clara followed in a silent hop. Beyond, the air was older. The carpet turned to faded tapestry. Doors whispered with titles. Archives. Maps. Special collections. At the end, waited the astronomy room. Its transom still carrying tarnished letters of gold. Evelyn touched the knob. It burned cold, then surrendered with Aviolin, string twang. Wait, Liam said, hand against the wood. We shouldn't. We already are, Evelyn answered, and pushed the door open. The astronomy room had slept for decades. Dust lay like snow upon the long table. The dome ceiling was painted with constellations, its gold leaf tarnished into honey-brown shadows. Moon phases marched along the molding, new to full to waning, a rhythm older than voices. Brass lamps with green glass shades stood silent as watchmen. Clara tiptoed to a cabinet of star charts, her breath fogging the glass. Ribbons still bound the rolls. Their ink faded, but stubborn. Don't breathe too hard, Liam whispered, though his own eyes were wide, drinking in every corner. Evelyn drifted to the far wall. An oak catalog waited, its little drawers like rows of teeth. Above it stretched a mural. A stag stood beneath 2 moons, one bright, one dim, as if one had forgotten how to shine. Its antlers were a forest, branches woven into impossible geometry. The paint had peeled in places, and in one almond-shaped scar of wood, a keyhole gleamed. It should not have been there, yet it was, polished by years of unseen fingers. There, Clara whispered. Her voice seemed to belong to the silence. Evelyn's hand went to her pocket. The key pulsed like a heartbeat. Of course, Liam muttered softly. Of course the key belongs here. Evelyn drew it out. The little stars in its ring breathed with faint light. She thought of all the doors it might open. The right ones, the wrong ones, the ones that might stare back. Clara slipped her fingers into Evelyn's hand. We can ask first, she said. Evelyn nodded. Her voice was low, almost prayer. If this is wrong, please show us. The silence softened, as if someone leaned closer on the other side. Rain whispered faintly on the roof. Dust drifted in the lamp glow. Evelyn set the key into the mural's keyhole. It fit as though the wood had grown around it. She turned. The click was soft. Like a lock sighing in relief, the stag's painted eye shimmered between its antlers. The forest seemed to ripple like heat. The wall deepened, its surface thinning into a veil of light. Branches bent aside, revealing not plaster, but a slice of sky, violet and storm-washed. Wind breathed through cool and mineral, smelling of pine and rain. Evelyn's breath caught. Clara's hand tightened. Liam whispered, "Close it." But even as he spoke, the light widened. A doorway stood where paint had been. Beyond it stretched a forest, its leaves alive with silver gleam. Birdsong floated through strange and sweet. Evelyn's courage gathered like a coat around her. 1, 2, 3, together they stepped. The wall passed over them like water. The library dissolved behind, and the forest claimed them whole. The first sensation was sound, the forest sighing in many voices, insects chiming like glass, wind weaving threads through leaves. A river's heartbeat somewhere ahead. The second was color. Green lived here in 100 shades, each brighter than the last. The air tasted of moss and rain, sharp as stone washed clean. Behind them, the doorway flickered, shrinking to a seam of light, then vanished between two trees. Liam pressed his palms to his eyes. When he lowered them, his voice was strained but steady. "This is impossible." "Yes," Evelyn said, "but here it is." Clara crouched by a fern, greeting a snail with a whisper. Her eyes glowed with delight. The forest stirred. Branches bent as if bowing. From the laurels stepped a deer, tall and slender, its antlers tipped with silver light. Clara rose unafraid. "Hello," she said gently. "Sorry we stepped in." The deer's gaze fixed on them. Its voice filled their hearts, not their ears. "You are late." Evelyn's breath faltered. She forced her voice steady. "We came as soon as we could." The deer stepped close, brushed Clara's sleeve with velvet muzzle. 3, it said. Threads braided together. The door chose well. "What do you want from us?" Liam asked sharply. The deer's eyes shone like moonlight. "The Shadow King has stolen the Sunstone. With it, darkness spreads. Only those who arrive by the small departure may walk where he cannot." Evelyn's hand found the key in her pocket. It pulsed warmly in answer. The undergrowth stirred. Figures cloaked in leaves emerged, their faces hidden by bark masks. They moved silently, circling the children. One stepped forward, offering a shard of crystal, glowing faintly with inner fire. "The first gift," the deer said, "a fragment of the Sunstone. Keep it close. It will guide you when all other light fails." Evelyn accepted it. The shard hummed in her palm, echoing the heartbeat of the key. Clara touched it, and the clearing brightened for an instant, as if dawn had broken early. The masked figures bowed, then melted back into the forest. The deer lingered. "The path of shadow is long. Every step is a choice. Remember the mirror pool?" Then it turned and was gone, leaving only silence and moss. The shard's glow tugged them forward, toward another clearing. There lay the mirror pool, round and still as polished glass. Its surface held not their faces, but their futures. Evelyn leaned close. She saw shelves stretching into infinity, pages flying like startled birds, and a door glowing faintly at the far end. Clara bent eagerly. She saw a fox, a wolf, and a sky filled with birds. They circled her as kin. Liam hesitated, then forced himself to look. The water clouded, revealing towers broken and burning. He stood alone on a battlefield. Behind him lay his sisters. He recoiled, face pale. "It's a trick," he muttered. "Just a trick." The pool calmed, showing only his reflection. Mist rose from the water, shaping a figure of silver light. Its voice filled them. "Paths are many. Some show hope, some fear, but each begins with choice. The Sunstone is broken. Only you 3 may mend what was lost." "Why us?" Evelyn whispered. "We're just children." "Because children still believe doors can open." The voice replied. The mist dissolved into the branches. The pool lay still again. Clara touched Evelyn's arm. "It wasn't a trick, it was a promise." "Or a warning," Liam said quietly. Evelyn closed her fingers around the shard. We can't turn back. The key chose us. The pool showed us. We have to follow. For a long moment, Liam stared at her, then gave a crooked smile. You always drag us into trouble, but you always follow, she said. Clara slipped her hand into theirs. There's always forward. The forest exhaled. Leaves stirred in a sudden breeze. The shard glowed, a faint path opening through the trees. Far away, thunder rolled. Not storm, but something vast waking. 3 children stood at the edge of destiny, a silver key in one pocket, a shard of light in one hand. Above them, 2 moons stirred behind the clouds. The journey had only begun.